Have you ever opened a massive spreadsheet and thought, where do I even start? There's tons of data, but no clear way to see which products drive the most sales or which stores bring in the biggest revenue share. Doing this manually could take hours. That's where pivot tables come in. The goal of the pivot table is to provide you a fast way to gain insights and create reports. Let's say you receive this dataset with the following information: the transaction code, the date of transaction, the store, the country, the item, and the sale. And let's say your manager wants you to figure out how much sales each product contributed to the total sales, and which stores account for the highest percentage of total sales. We can get this done by using a simple pivot table. But here's the thing. If your data isn't structured properly, your pivot table won't work. So let's start with preparation. So the first step is to prepare your dataset. If your dataset has empty rows, missing headers, or random gaps, your pivot table will give you errors. So basically, the first step is making sure your data is formatted properly by making sure that each column has a header and you don't have empty columns or rows. The next step is to format your dataset as an Excel table. Click on a random cell of your table, press Ctrl A and then press Ctrl T. This will transform your dataset as an Excel table with headers. Alright, now we have a properly formatted dataset. Now let's actually build the pivot table. Step 2. Insert a pivot table. Go to the Insert tab and click Pivot Table. If you only select a static range, here is the problem. When new data comes in, your report won't include it. This would mean that you'd have to fix the range every single time new data comes in. But luckily, we have formatted our dataset as an Excel table. Excel uses the table name instead of a range. That means any new data are automatically included in your pivot. As you can see, creating the pivot table is easy. But the question is, how do you actually format it to answer your questions? Step 3. Explore the fields. This is the result of my table. Now on the right side here, we get the pivot table fields. Notice that the fields in this section corresponds to the headers of our dataset. In order to answer the question on how much sales each product contributed to the total sales, you simply drag the items from the fields to the rows section. Drag the sales, but this time to the values section. If you want to know which stores account for the highest percentage of total sales, you simply remove the items from the rows by either dragging it out of the pivot table list or right-clicking on it and selecting Remove Field. Now drag the store in the rows column. If you're not happy about the table design, you simply change it by navigating to the Design tab and selecting one of the table designs. Step 4. Format and cleanup. Now you might want to change the column headers. Simply click on the cell of your header and type in the title you want. So instead of Sum of Sales, we can simply change it to Sales. You can further tweak how the numbers are shown. So let's say I want to add a 1000 separator to my numbers here. Right-click on a cell, but don't select Format Cells because that just formats the underlying cell. But instead, use number formats because it stays with your pivot table as it expands. Choose number. For the decimal places, change it to 0 and select Use 1000 separator. Right-click on a cell. Choose number format. Select currency. Here I will change the decimal places to 0. In the symbol drop-down, select $. Step 5. Add more insights. Now let's say we want to visualize the complete sales value, but we also want to see the sales percentage by store compared with the total of sales. We already have our sales column. All that is left is to bring in the percentage values. So the next step is to drag the sales a second time in the values field. Then right-click, select Field Settings, navigate to Show Data As. In the selection field here, choose Percentage of Grand Total. If you want to see the grand total, select a cell from your pivot table, navigate to the Design tab, click on the Grand Totals icon, and either turn it off for the columns or rows only, or both. Great! Now let's sort our table from largest to smallest so that we can see which store sold the most products. Right-click on a cell from your sales column, navigate to Sort, and select Sort from largest to smallest. Now you see both the actual numbers and their percentages side by side. But what if you want to zoom in interactively? Say, filter the whole report to just one store with a click. Step 6. Use slicers. Filters work, but they don't make reports feel interactive. Now I can filter by items to see which store sold the most items that I have selected. Click on Filter. Let's select Coffee Grinder from our filter list. Here we can see that a store in Osaka sold the most coffee grinder. Now let's make it more fancy. First, remove the items from the filter section by dragging it out of the pivot table fields. Next, select a cell from your pivot table, go to Pivot Table Analyze, insert Slicer, pick Items. Now let me adjust the size of the slicer so that all items fit in the window. I can also change the design of the slicer by selecting one of the layout here. Now I can simply click on an item and it will show me the sales of the different stores for this particular item. Great job! We started with a messy data set and turned it into a clear interactive report. As you can see, it's very fast to create a pivot table and it's really easy to use one. It helps you find the relationships between your data instantly. Combine this with pivot charts and you have a compelling way to show data. Pivot charts bring your reports to life. So watch this next video if you want to spice up your report. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and I'll see you in the next one.